Well, today's topic is something that we've discussed for a long time, and we are very fortunate to have a very distinguished panel with us today that's going to be sharing some current and updated information on a new facility that's going to be opening up fairly close to where we're at right now, the old Miles Fiberglass building. And it's going to be called the Navigation Center for a lot of different reasons. They're going to be bringing a lot of different services under one roof. And we used to look at homelessness as, well, if we put them in a hotel room, that'll take care of it. If we get them addiction counseling, that'll take care of it. If we get them food stamps or some workforce training, that'll take care of it. There is no one solution. The one thing we have recognized over the years is each individual is unique, and each person has their own issues that needs to be dealt with by the proper trained representatives that understand the addictions or understand the behavioral issues that that person has. So we're really excited to hear about the possibilities of that new facility opening up. But before I get started, I'd like to acknowledge our elected officials, and if you could stand when I say your name, that would be great. We have Clackamas County Chair Tootie Smith. We have Clackamas County Commissioner Martha Schrader. We have Clackamas County Commissioner Ben West. And I'm not sure if Mark's here yet. Oh, there he is, Sorry, Mark. I didn't see you at one of these tables. You were hiding from me. Then we have a City of Gladstone Councilor, Greg Alexander. Great. We have Commissioner and Board Treasurer for Clackamas River Water, Tessa Daniel. We have Clackamas River Water Board President, Sherry French. And we also have another City of Gladstone Councilor, Veronica Reichley. Did I say that? Close enough? Okay. All right. Well, we're happy to have all of you here. We appreciate your attendance at this month's forum. In fact, we have a great turnout. We have close to 85 just in here in person. So before we go ahead and introduce the panel, I want to bring Lori Oland up. She's part of the family of Miles Fiberglass, and she's going to share a few words with all of you. So, Lori.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to say a few words. On behalf of the Miles family, we want to say goodbye to a community we spent so much time being a part of. We are sad to leave and have great memories of Oregon City. We have been a part of OC community for over 40 years. Miles Fiberglass moved into 1516 Main Street 43 years ago, and it doesn't seem possible. It was my father's dream to own his own building and build a successful business. Our company became part of the community, delivering Meals on Wheels for many years, making the Pioneer Rock that sits at the Pioneer Museum and the molecule hanging in the Science Building at Clackamas Community College. My father became a part of the community by serving on boards of the Museum of the Oregon Territory and the End of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center. For over 35 years, he served on the Clackamas Community Foundation Board, where he and my mother established 4 endowments, and he also served as chair of the Oregon City Chamber twice because he liked it so much. He wanted to make it even better. So we felt it was serendipity that a wonderful organization like Homeless Solutions Coalition of Clackamas County would be taking our space. An organization that would help to serve those in need with coordinated wraparound care, helping to solve the problem. My father was all about solving problems. Something my dad would always say, let's be part of the solution. And in fact, it's kind of ironic that a few of the organizations moving in are the Father's Heart and Love One. It is as if they are coming together under his roof to help others in need. And he would have loved that. It was with a heavy heart we recently had to say goodbye to my father, and now to a community we have been a big part of. But it helps knowing that my father's dream, building, would be helping others and serving those in need. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Lori. And we'd like to thank Miles Fiberglass as being the sponsor for today's forum event here at the Abernathy Center. So thank you very much. So before we get started, I just want to reference a couple statistics that came out recently in the Sunday Oregonian, April 9th. It said Oregon ranked 4th in the nation among the states with the largest numeric increases in homelessness from 2020 to 2022. Oregon had the nation's 3rd highest rate with 42 homeless people per 10,000 residents, according to the same report. Nearly 62% of Oregon's homeless population was found to be living unsheltered in early 22. Only 3 other states were worse off: California, Mississippi, and Hawaii. Oregon had the highest rate of chronic homelessness in the nation, with 4.4% individuals experiencing homelessness and showing patterns of chronic homelessness. Chronic homelessness means that someone has a disability and has been homeless for more than 1 year or has experienced homelessness multiple times over several years. Among the nation's major metropolitan areas, Portland had the 2nd highest percentage of people in families experience homelessness, living unsheltered at 68%. So as you can see, this issue has been here for a while. But the good news is it's not something we just put our heads in the sand and say it'll go away. We've found a way to be proactive through public and private partnerships, bringing the proper people in that are trained to deal with all of these situations. And today we're honored and privileged to hear from several of those individuals. So if I could have Joe Wedding come up. Joe, where are you? There you are, Joe. And I'll have you say a few words and introduce some of the other individuals that will make up our panel.
Thank you, Ken. It's ironic to have the last name of Wedding so close to the Abernathy Center and Chapel. I think people were getting confused. It's nice to be here. My name is Joe Wedding. I am the Executive Manager of Homeless Solutions Coalition of Clackamas County. I joined right at the end of January, early part of February, to jump in and do much of the work that needs to be done, creating a foundation that is strong to move everything forward. Part of my background is in education, and one of the reasons it's nice to be in front of groups that are interested in solving something is that we can bring different minds, different sets of creativity to the table to make that happen. When Lori was talking a second ago about her father and his interests and his impact in this community, I thought about some of my time in Kansas City, where one of my mentors said something that has stayed with me all of these years, and it was very simple. He said, "Only a few of us are ever asked to leave something behind." And how nice would it be if part of our legacy collectively is to develop all of these partnerships that will have an incredible effect on reducing and addressing the homeless situation here in Oregon City. So I'm very happy to be working with a good board. They're going to execute a vision, and they're going to do this through partnerships, hopefully with everyone who is in this room and beyond. At this point, I'd like to introduce our board chair, Dan Fowler, who will take you a little bit deeper into what we've been doing.
Thank you, and I'm going to ask the panel if you would join me and come on up to the area and of the stage. And then do we have a clicker for the, oh, here it is, yeah, for this. Okay. I'm going to put this down. I think I can hopefully stay in one spot for a minute. As Joe mentioned, my name is Dan Fowler. For those of you who don't know me, I am a businessman here in town. I actually I'm one of the owners of the Abernathy Center, and my daughter and I had the privilege of creating Corner 14 recently, and I served as mayor in the 90s here in town. I had the privilege to do that. And I do sit as the chair of the Homeless Solution Coalition and a member of the OCBA, the Oregon City Business Alliance. So it gives me a lot of pleasure to give back to the community. One thing I learned about myself is I say I have two pillars in life. I like to create things, and I love serving people. And so to be able to build things in the community but also give back and serve that's me. That's who I am. I want to start by thanking a few people. I want to thank Clackamas County and the leadership. I want to thank the management at West for their support in giving us a fabulous person who's helped us through our community planning and community communications in Shelley Perini. Thank you for that support of us. And Shelley didn't do it alone. We had two other partners in that effort. We had Max Wedding, and we had Jennifer Rogers. And Max and Jennifer, I don't think are here today, but they were a huge support to us in the creation of our documentation and our communication efforts, so I want to thank them publicly too. Their support of us was helped by another entity in town, and that is Providence. Providence Health really stepped up, gave us funding to actually help us hire our first executive manager in Joe, and to help in creating our communication effort for us so we could be effective in helping communicate these efforts to the community. So thank you, Providence. So just a little bit about where we've been on our journey. You know, when you're creating something or you have an idea, it's going to be new to the community. There's always people that are curious. There's people that are worried. There's people that are happy. You get all the spectrum, and we've had that all happen. And yet that's good. Out of those efforts come ideas. Out of those efforts, concerns are good. Concerns that people have are legitimate, and they are to be heard. And we've done that. Actually, some of the concerns that we heard in some of our neighborhood meetings, we're already starting to deal with how we can address those. But we've held 2 neighborhood meetings this last week. We've held a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce at a Good Morning Oregon City, and we had a Zoom meeting where anyone in the public could be attending. So we've tried to take an idea that has been generated over the last few months and really bring it forth to the public in a way that is part telling a story, but also part listening. And it's important we do that. And we're going to continue to do that. We are at the beginning of this journey. We're not at the end. We hope to get at the end, and I'll talk about time frames in a little bit. But we're at the beginning, so it's good to hear from people. So what about today? Today is going to go something like this. I'm going to introduce the panel here in a minute, and they'll give some background on them. We're going to share about the Navigation Center, and then we'll have plenty of time for some Q&A. We have some people. I think Shelley's going to be one, and another person. They're going to collect cards. We have cards and pens on the table. We'd like to get any of your questions that you have, and we'll get those towards the end. So that's the flow. Let me say one other thing. People ask me, why are you involved in this? Now, other than the 2 pillars in my life I shared about, but why am I involved in this? And what I do is tell a story. Really, it's about my head and my heart. My head said, this issue is affecting your business. I had homeless people sleeping in my gazebos. Pretty hard for the sales staff to walk out and sell a wedding when they're waking up a homeless individual. And my heart part of me is saying, we have to do something. I have family members that have suffered from this. I have friends that were in high school with me that have suffered in homelessness that I still support and see almost weekly. So there's a balance between my head and my heart in addressing the issue. I'm not naive to the impact that businesses have and not naive to the impact that residents have. I get it. I'm in it with you. And yet, we have to do something. And that something is creating partnerships. We've done that with Love One. We've done that with Father's Heart. We've done it with a number of other nonprofits. We're doing that with Providence. We're doing that with Clackamas County. We're doing that with the city of Oregon City. We want to do it with you. Partnerships is how this community will be different. It's how we will solve this issue. We cannot do it if we don't do it together. So that's a little bit. So I want to, we'll just go down and we're going to have the panelists say who they are and what they're doing and how this effort relates to what they do. So Marty Gant, the Father's Heart.
Hi, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to talk to each one of you. I want to talk about the start, just briefly. 23 years ago, my wife went downtown Portland looking for her brother, and she saw broken and hurting people. She found her brother. He was a heroin addict, had been for years, and she realized the destruction that all that brought. For over a year, she was faced with those challenges of seeing those faces, seeing those hurting, and she made a decision to help in whatever way she could. That's what birthed the Father's Heart. She helped with compassion. She helped with love. She helped with basic human needs, basic things that she could do. The unfortunate thing that happened that was the most traumatic is Terry passed on January 1st, 2017, right before the Homeless Solutions Coalition started forming. She had a vision of collaborating with many things, business, government, state and local, all the businesses here, individuals. She didn't get to see all the work that's being done. And for a couple of years, I was lost. I'll be honest. It was hard for me to readdress and go into this because Terry was running the ministry. I saw the need, and I either had to get out of the way or go help. I decided to help. Today, let me just tell you a little bit about the Father's Heart. We serve approximately 300 meals a day, every day of the week. And I'm going to put on my glasses because this list is long. We do about 300 meals. We have a clothing exchange program. We do showers. We do about 25 showers a day. We provide hygiene supplies. We have emergency food boxes when needed. We have a living room for comfort. We have mats for rest. We have a mail room for almost 130 to 140 people. We help with ID replacement. We provide life skill education. We have doctor health care every Friday. We have foot care once a month. We provide bus passes. We have a haircut stylist that comes in once a month. We have a computer lab. We're really engaged in having rules and expectations of the clients that come visit us. We do referrals to agencies like mental health, detox, and such as that. We have harm reduction services at least twice a week. We are contracted with the county for warming, cooling, and smoke center relief. In this past winter, we were open 78 nights so far this winter because of the cold. We had over 3,500 beds filled. We've been contracted with the county for the hotel program, and we've been running that program approximately 2 years. We've housed over 190 people. In the last, January, February, March, since January 1st, we've housed over 40 people, and that's permanent housing. In that program, we have peer support, case management, and housing navigation. We're fortunate to have a CHA administrator, that's a coordinated housing access. We have de-escalation training for both the staff and volunteers. We have continuing partner with Love One and many agencies, so many, if I started listing them out, I'd probably forget one, so I'm not going to do that. The Father's Heart is proactive, vigilant, and determined to help solve this problem. You know, Terry had a vision years ago, and I'd like to think that we're carrying that vision forward, that we can co-labor with everyone, that we aren't in this alone, that all of us can help solve this. And I'm just really proud to be here, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty. Yeah, I had the privilege of meeting Terry just before she passed in late December, and we talked about that very thing. We talked about bringing people together. So the genesis of this idea really is hers. Next, Brandy Johnson. Brandy is the executive director of Love One. She's going to share about her agency and a little bit about working in the Navigation Center. Brandy?
Thanks, Dan. As Dan mentioned, I'm the executive director of Love One. I'm on the board of the Homeless Solutions Coalition, and as Marty mentioned, Love One and Father's Heart partner extensively in the services that we provide, as well as supporting mutual clients. I have lived my entire life in Clackamas County. I grew up in Molalla. I see Doug. We went to high school together. I've lived 21 years in Oregon City, the McLaughlin neighborhood, and I now live in Holcomb. This is an issue that impacts me personally and my family, and as Dan mentioned, it's a head and a heart thing for me as well. I spent I spent 14 years in a law office where I really liked the processes, the procedures, the very clear documents and other things that law work entails. The last thing I thought I would be doing is running an agency that provides social services. There's not many boxes for that, unless we're talking contracts. The mission of Love One is to love one person, one family, and one community at a time. It's been mentioned that this is a crisis that affects people at an individual level, and then it also impacts us as a community. We accomplish our mission by meeting basic needs. That looks like laundry and hygiene. That's how we started. That was before COVID, if anyone can remember that far back. I took on the role of executive director in the fall of 2019, and then COVID hit. And that, I thought, I'll do this as a little side gig. I keep my job, and we just do laundry. What we started seeing was infections and infestations due to closure of public restrooms and access to soap and water at a rate we had never seen before. Is anyone here from Rotary? I think I see some of you. Yes. So the Rotary clubs fundraised, and we now have a beautiful shower cart. And if anyone ever eats at Coasters, you'll see it in the parking lot next door. It's very hard to miss. So we provide showers, mobile showers. We can take that anywhere. We also expanded to doing food boxes with the USDA Farm to Table Food Box Program. Many of our team work in the school district, our board members and our volunteers, and they were concerned about students not having access to the backpack buddies and the other resources that many students rely on to get through the weekend when school's closed. If you'll remember what happened in fall of 2020, the wildfires hit. Guess what came in handy? The mobile shower cart and the food boxes. And then in January, we had the ice storms. Again, we rolled out the shower cart and the food boxes. So what we've learned is to be able to pivot quickly and respond quickly in any situation. When the farm to table food box program ended, we started running a food pantry out in Redland. That looked like, until 3 weeks ago, that looked like 2,000 pounds of food gone in 10 minutes. We serve over 300 people every single Thursday. We now have a contract with Oregon Food Bank. That amount of food has increased to 6,500 pounds, and it lasts maybe 15 minutes now. So we are continuing to look for ways to expand and provide resources in our rural communities. We have also expanded to holding trash extravaganzas. No one wants to sign up for an event. People will sign up for extravaganzas. So we rely on our law enforcement partners for referrals to areas that need to be cleaned up. Encampments, usually we don't clear camps. What we do is we go out and do outreach. We work with folks on a plan. What do they want to work on? What do they need to get where they're going? And then we go back, we bring in a team of folks with lived experience. Some are actively unhoused and some are recently housed, and we pay them for their time to help us clean up. Our first event, we cleared 100 yards of trash. So we are able to adjust and adapt to the needs of our community based on the feedback we hear both from our unhoused and our housed neighbors. And that's really what Love One is about. We do all of that by building relationships and being responsive to community concerns and needs. This is not a single focus mission. We're very much, how can we holistically live as a successful and healthy community? The Navigation Center for Love One will streamline access to services for the folks that we work with. It allows us to better collaborate with our existing partners and bring on-site additional partners. And it provides a central location for our staff and supplies that we don't currently have. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. Next, we have Adam Brown, and Adam is the Deputy Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services for Clackamas County, and we couldn't do the work that we do, and the nonprofits couldn't do the work that they do without the support of that agency. So, Adam, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Adam Brown. As Dan said, I'm the Deputy Director of Clackamas County's Health, Housing, and Human Services. I appreciate you all being here this afternoon and look forward to taking questions and supporting the dialogue in whatever way I can. So, as the Deputy Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services, that means I'm a bureaucrat, or maybe a technocrat. You know, and some people, you know, use that word pejoratively, but I wear it as a badge of honor because I believe that we need strong, capable public institutions, and that those institutions can do a lot of good. And we do at Health, Housing, and Human Services. My department, which has a budget of over $300 million and has more than 800 employees, we're the largest provider and funder of critical safety net services in our community. And the breadth of the department is huge. So we have a clinical system where we deliver physical and behavioral health services. We have a behavioral health division that operates our county's crisis line. We do public health, which does things like inspect our restaurants and keeps us safe and healthy. We have Children, Family, and Community Connections division, which delivers workforce programming and self-sufficiency programs. And then most relevant for this conversation is we have a Housing and Community Development division. And there's two parts to that division, really. One is our Housing Authority, which is our county's public housing agency. And then also the other side, our housing services side, is we deliver and fund all of our county's homeless services. So system support and coordination, shelter, housing placement and retention, rent assistance programs, and supportive housing. So H3S has a big breadth. I think it's really important to our community, and we rely a lot on system partners like our community-based organizations here that are on the panel today, and also our public safety partners in the district attorney's office and the sheriff's office. And so we all work really closely together to coordinate on meeting some of our community's most pressing needs.
Okay. Thank you, Adam. And next we do have Bill Stewart. He's the Deputy District Attorney for Clackamas County. And one of the ways we do things differently here in Clackamas County is we actually work well with our law enforcement agencies and our prosecutors. So, Bill, thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Again, my name is Bill Stewart. I'm a Deputy District Attorney with Clackamas County. My specific role is as a community prosecutor. I've been a DA for 21 years, and I've been a community prosecutor for about 17. You might ask yourself, why is someone from the DA's office sitting here at this table and being part of this conversation? Well, quite frankly, I see my goal and my responsibility as to improve public safety and enhance the quality of life in our communities. And when it comes to homelessness, I'm the guy who's been criminalizing homelessness for 17 years. I'm the one who charges these cases, prosecutes these things. And quite frankly, what I've come to realize is without these partnerships, we're not going to address that issue. We can't just arrest our way out of the problem. We can't just push people around. I mean, that's what we've done for a long time, and you just move them to another part of the county. And then I get to face other neighbors and businesses who say, what the heck are you doing here? So I guess I would say one of the reasons I'm here is that we had a sea change starting in 2019. That was a time, in my experience, we had our first true outreach, where folks went out to where homeless people are, and that was through our LEAD program initially, Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion, and developed a relationship and trust. Now, I'm the last person a homeless person wants to see. They don't trust me. I mean, I've been making their lives miserable for 21 years. But what we found is that when they start developing that trust, they become open to change. The second thing happened with COVID is that we had our motel program, which allowed us to have transitional housing for single adults for the first time. And my God, I tell you folks, before 2019, if we housed 10 chronically homeless people in a year, that was a good year. And we're now having at least a couple of hundred of these folks off the street through this program. It's not easy, but that's how we solve this issue in terms of the challenge it creates to our neighborhoods and our businesses. And so I'm really looking forward to the partnership that the Navigation Center holds, the promise that it holds, and I'm looking forward to taking your questions.
Okay, I just want to remind you, if you do have questions, there's cards on the table and pens on the table, and you can fill those out, and we'll be collecting those as we go. I'm going to talk about the Homeless Solution Coalition for a minute, and then the Navigation Center. The Navigation Center is what we're calling it. It might not be the permanent name of it. I just want to put that out there, but it's what we're calling it for right now, so in terms of our meetings. So and some of you have heard this before. I'll go a little quick about us, so I apologize if you heard it before. It's just a little brief for those that haven't. Our Homeless Solution Coalition actually formed on October 5th of 2016. It was just a group of people, businesses, city leaders, county leaders. You can see Vahid is there, the chief band is there, a lot of people in the school district, just a myriad of people that came together because I had this crazy idea that we needed to do something. And we were trying to figure out what that something meant. And as an ex-mayor, I have to say, when you call people up, they actually come to a meeting. That's the only thing that I got. It was fun. Anyway, we started to talk and dialogue. But you can see the law enforcement is well represented. So we wanted a broad group just to start brainstorming. Then we stepped from that. We started holding, a few months later, we were just trying to learn about the issue. We were newbies. We didn't know. We still are learning. Every day we're learning. But we invited leaders and people from other communities to come in and just talk to us. We're just educating ourselves, just gaining information. And we would hold community meetings. So we'd have a panel like this, but from people from different expertises come together. We met right across the street at the Community Education Center, Willamette Falls, upstairs. And they have a nice little amphitheater room up there. The genesis of the idea of community partnerships started in that building also. In that when we would hold those public meetings and educate ourselves, what we did ahead of that meeting, out in the big foyer hallway up above, if you've been in that building, is we'd have service providers come in. We'd have the Father's Heart, we'd have Loved One come in, we'd have the food banks come in, we'd have people that are doing various efforts in this arena of homelessness just come in, put up a table, and talk about what they do. Sounds pretty simple, right? What we discovered in that simple act was the providers got to know one another. They were in silos. No offense, they were just doing their thing, heart-driven, but they got to know one another. They go, oh, you're doing that? Well, hey, why don't we team up and do this? Oh, you're trying for that grant? Well, why don't we team up and do that grant together? That was a huge just awakening for them and for us. And that started to get greater results. Novel idea. What if people actually come together, work together, not eliminate each other, but cooperate together and have more effective results? Wouldn't that be awesome? Simple idea. That's probably the biggest thing, or one of the biggest things that came out of our community meetings. So what did we do as an organization? We just started forming. We have now between 400 and 500 people and agencies involved. We brought in the homeless people, education, business, healthcare, private sector, faith-based organizations, citizens, law enforcement, city and county government. We formed an executive team. We formed work groups. We were very focused on results. We wanted solutions. We wanted simple things, but we wanted to make an impact. And we formed an advisory team that just kept helping us try to get better. Then we grew, and we registered as a nonprofit. We became a 501c3. We started receiving some grants. I mentioned a couple things that we received from organizations. We formed a board, and our board is a well-diverse board. Many live right here in the community. Those that live outside the community have an expertise we wanted or a diversity that we wanted in that. We have formerly homeless individuals on our board, but it's a diverse board that's lean, mean, and effective. And we'll be expanding the board as we grow. Developed relationships with others committed to ending homelessness. And we learned that the key to success was twofold: developing trust and keeping those relationships. And that trust factor goes two ways. A trust factor is between that service provider and that homeless individual. If anyone's going to open up to you, they better learn to trust you. We've been told a homeless person doesn't trust the homeless person next to them because they just steal their stuff all the time. They're not going to trust them. So this lack of trust is really key. So what does Brandy do? She just goes down Newell Creek Canyon with 2 cups of coffee in her hand. Would you like some coffee? She's just developing relationships, developing trust. She's not even telling them what to do. She just wants to know them. That's how partnerships start between the homeless individual and even that service provider coming down there to help them. So that same thing starts to happen, as I mentioned, with the service providers to each other. So our goal, we kind of stole this one, is make homeless rare, brief, and non-recurring. And that's the county's goal, and we think it's very, very well said. So what are the key observations? Many are working to end homelessness. In the past, they often worked in the silos. I mentioned that. That's starting to shift. So we asked, well, knowing all that I just said, what if we could improve collaboration and support? What if essential services could be co-located? What if support services existed away from the neighborhoods? You know, we know the impact. Of the Father's heart, Marty's not naive. He knows he's in a residential area. So we started really looking at, well, how could that all get better? How could we cooperate more, work together more, relocate? So that's what led to, one day literally driving down Main Street and here's this big building sitting there. And it's like, what if? What if? So I called up Lori, who I've known for years, and said, well, what are you doing with that old building? Well, we're thinking about selling it. I go, awesome, I have an idea. Let's talk. So we started talking. Here we are today. So the Father's heart is not the only tenant in the building. They are not moving from 5,000 square feet to 40,000 square feet. They're going from about 5,000 square feet to maybe 10,000 square feet. There's other nonprofits that will be in it. We want everybody that could potentially be in that building is in Oregon City or Clackamas County today. They're doing good work today. What we're talking about is efficiency. I'm a business guy. I don't like wasting time, and I don't like wasting money, and I want results. That's what we've been talking about, this whole collaborative process. What if we could co-locate some of those nonprofits that are already here, already doing their work, to be together to be more effective? That's what it is. So in that process, and again, we're twofold here today. These are conceptual drawings. We hope that it's very similar to this, but they're conceptual drawings, and we're imparting information. And at the same time, I want to tell you, it's not done. The cake's not baked. We still want ideas. We still want information. We want your concerns. That's how we eliminate them or alleviate them or lessen them. So we're not afraid of any of that. So shared space, one-stop shop. We're calling it a navigation center because we hope that the homeless can navigate away from being homeless. That's the whole concept. Now, navigation, if you look up navigation center legally and ORS, there's a legal term to it. That's not it. Okay, that's not it. We're calling that as a working name. Easy collaboration can occur, joint problem solving, and those with lived experience can be a part of our solution, and we've involved them the entire way. So the building itself, it doesn't look like that today, but we've hired an architect. We've brainstormed a little bit with them. We've actually started a process early on where we hired a firm called Felt Hat, was the name of the firm, kind of an odd name, but that's their name. And they did community outreach for us. We said, we want it to be independent of any of our thinking. We would like you to go and talk to the neighbors, talk to businesses, talk to leaders, ask them whatever question you want to ask. They had a series of questions, and bring us back information that we could help put into this facility. That drove a lot of what you're going to see here. Some of the things we heard was, can you lessen the visual impact? This will be where the homeless go. Can you lessen the visual impact? So one of the ideas in that regard was to pull the facade of the building back, creating a courtyard. Now that would be locked up at night. We're not going to create a nuisance. But so the gathering point is here, not out on the sidewalks. The other thing we're talking about is, can we create a space on the rooftop that's back from the edges so there's nobody seeing and falling or anything like that, but that's back, so can we create a space that is not visible from the street even, so that they can go up if they smoke or they have a dog, or they can work in our community gardens. We want to have gardens up there. We want to grow the lettuce that we have in the cafeteria. We want people to feel like they're valued and that they have dignity and they're a part of the solution. Then we could do some fun things like put solar panels and do some things up there that are energy efficient and be a good neighbor to our environment. So this corner here, we realize Subaru is next door. And yes, I have met with Subaru, And they did say they were supportive. I'm not sure they said they were excited, but they said they were supportive of the idea, all right? So they, but what we're talking about here was a coffee shop. Let's put in a retail coffee shop that would be served, the workers in there would be homeless individuals that are entering the workforce again. So we've talked about job training, we've talked about a lot of things. So that's what's at that corner. So this just depicts the concept that there's multiple providers in the building. We've talked about Loved One and the Father's Heart a lot. We're talking to other people. We're talking to Providence about their Bob program come down, which is building opportunity through bridges. We're talking to other nonprofits about being there. We've talked to the Ant Farm folks, so we're meeting with them about the potentially of running the coffee shop because they do that as a nonprofit for homeless youth. They've just about a bakery that they could supply. So we're talking with a lot of people to bring adequate and needed services together to be efficient and effective in our delivery and our help. I'm talking a lot about what we're doing. Let's never forget why we're doing it. Why we're doing it. We're doing it to move individuals that are homeless, that are suffering, that need some help to a better spot in their life. This is a nice fancy building. I'm not doing it for a nice fancy building. I'm doing it because I really believe in my heart of hearts that if we can bring the nonprofits together, we can be more effective in our delivery of services and we can move them to a better place. That's why. That's why. So courtyard, now there's a reason these are circles and not squares. There's a trauma-informed design that the architectural firm is doing. Circles are peaceful, squares are edgy. And it has to do with the psyche. So they're a lot smarter in that area than I am, and I'm thankful for them. But that's why you see some of this. This is just, we call this the living room or the front room where people come in. Again, you can see it's just wood, it's natural elements. It looks fancy, but it's really simple. But there's a whole design around it. As Marty said, it's not just a free flow. There's policies and procedures, there's entry points, all that we've taken into account. We know that security and safety is important, not only for the building and the people working in it, but our neighbors. We're talking about forming a safety and security committee that will involve our business neighbors and our residential people in the community, as well as the tenants of the building. So we're taking a full look at this, how we can design the building through entry points. How do we bring people around the building, or do we bring people around the building? Do we have security cameras at certain points? So there's a lot that we're not talking about that I'm trying to give you a flavor for that we're working on. Again, our anchored tenants. Other examples, medical clinic. Marty mentioned there's somebody that comes one day a week. What if they were there every day? Coffee shop I mentioned. Coordinated housing access as an agency through the county. We're encouraging them to consider locating some of that into the building. So why? So it can be easy for the homeless person, the person navigating the system, to not have to drive all over the place. You don't have to get your ID at one place. You can get this there, and this there, and this there. Make it easy for the individuals. Educational learning partnership. Where's Kirk? I talked to Kurt today. I mean, we're talking to individuals all the time. There are people coming up saying, "Hey, I can help with that." So, and we talk about that tailored to the homeless. How to get a job, how to write a resume, how to enter workforce again. How do I just get my life started again? And there's people that can help and come along and do that. There he is, right there. Thanks, Kurt. So, and then meeting facilities, flexible space. We see this as a space where we want the neighborhood association to have their meetings there. We don't want this to be a scary place. We want this a place, and some of the nonprofit providers won't co-locate, but they'll come there for their own meetings. They'll hold meetings there. We anticipate behavioral health services, at least triage, at least examinations and referrals. So there's so many aspects to this facility that can really get down and help in this area. There we go. So, Shelley, do you have some question cards? And we'll start firing away. There he is. Okay, thanks. Okay. Is the building of the Navigation Center created with informed trauma care in mind. Yes, it is. I've mentioned it, but yes, it is. It's the architects are knee-deep in that, and every aspect is being looked at. But that's a good question. The fear of Oregon City is that you will be too successful attracting the homeless. Is there any other facility in the Portland area doing what the Navigation Center will propose to do? Well, I'm going to answer part of it, then I'm going to pass about the question about attractive. Every hospital does similar what we do. You have an ER, you have an emergency room, you have an entry point, and then you are put to the area of your need. So yes, there's a lot of facilities doing what we're doing. And we've been doing what we're proposing to do in the building in reality through the cramped quarters at the Father's Heart and our providers right now. And we've been doing that for about 3 or 4 years. So yeah, it's not like we're doing anything different. And I want to stress this. Everybody that's potentially moving into the building is already here. We're already doing it. It's just we're not in a collaborative space. But what about the question, I think it's legitimate, what if we're too successful? Would not be, I don't know if that's a problem or a good thing or a bad thing. Let's just say that. But I get the point behind it is if we build it, they will come. Do you want to mention that?
Well, I want to mention, we've been doing this for, I mentioned it, 23 years, and numbers haven't changed. So it's not about growth or doing more. It's doing it better. It's collaborating together to be more efficient. If you can imagine, we have someone, then we triage or whatever you want to call it, but they have a need. But you're supposed to catch a bus, and there's 2 exchanges, and they go there. And then that goes from there over there. This individual doesn't have transportation, doesn't have any of that. We've already found that having collaboration in a building solves problems. It helps the individual solve problems. And what's that do? Gives them a better life, and then they have success in getting off the streets. This isn't a one-stop shop, but it could be. We have so many opportunities to help as partners come together. This whole part of collaborating, it's, Brandy and I have built this unsaid triage of, well, you're better at that than I am. You do that. You're better at that than I am. And there's 10 other agencies coming alongside us. So I don't see it as growth. I see it as efficiency and better for what we're doing. You want to?
Yeah, I think the question about if we're too good at our job, if we build it, they will come, I think is kind of what that was alluding to. Mm-hmm. So, because if we're too good at our jobs, we're going to work ourselves out of having work, and then I'm going to go on vacation.
Yay.
Thank you. So already we see some trickle effect from Portland. That's reality. How we address that is what matters, and we're very strategic about that, which comes down to getting to know the individuals we're working with. What is their story? What are their existing connections and resources? And how can we help them along that path? We don't scoop everybody under our wings and say, oh, come in here, we're going to solve all your problems. A, that's not how this work works. And B, we just can't. That's not helpful. We connect people to resources or reconnect them to existing resources, which is why our collaborative efforts matter. We need to know who to call at TPI. We know who to call at Central City Concern. We know who to reach out to with whatever various agency this person was last connected to or is still working with, and then we reconnect them to those services. The other piece is sometimes people just need a shower and a sandwich, and then, you know what? They want a bus pass, and they want to go back home to Illinois. We help with that. So it's very much an individual case conferencing type situation.
Okay. Got a lot of questions, so try to your answers if you can. Okay. We talk about services. The word enabling often comes up. Providing services is a significant step to building trust, allowing agencies to address the issue that causes chronic homelessness and helps get individuals into permanent housing. So I think the question is, how would the Navigation Center, your service providers, be making sure that it's not enabling, but it's actually helping?
Well, I've been accused of enabling for a long time, and we've heard the hand up or hand out. We hand up and we help people. their basic human needs that they have. They're human beings, and we're to help them. But through the help, through the trust, through the importance of a clean pair of jeans or socks, you're building this program of which they now trust us to help them find solutions to their problems. You can't just take a homeless person here and put them over here and expect success. Trust is built through these things. Feed them, clothe them, help them, but we're not enabling them. There's responsibilities they have when we bring these programs together.
Okay, can the homeless be hired or encouraged to clean up the roadsides and the areas in which they are living? I don't think communities are distressed about the tents as they are about the garbage strewn about. Do you want to talk about, maybe Bill, do you want to talk about the trash and trust events a little bit, and or Brandy?
Okay. So our trash extravaganzas do exactly this. We're not alongside the roads, but we are out at the camps picking up the trash. There are rats the size of possums, in case anyone was wondering. But that is absolutely impact, and we do pay people with lived experience for their time. In fact, I have a meeting on Thursday morning with one of our folks that we just recently housed, and he's going to be heading up our trash program for us. We get referrals all the time from folks who are outside. Can you please come help us clean up our trash? So absolutely, yes.
So we call it trash and trust events. And so the idea is, we started with RVs, and RVs are really hard to deal with. It can be upwards of $6,000 to $8,000 to deconstruct those things and get them off the roads. So we were just moving them around, particularly in the industrial area. That was very frustrating for me. So we started this event, and Brandy, she told you that we picked up 100 cubic yards of trash the first time. And we had 8 or 9 folks camped there. And it was out on Clackamas Avenue by a recycling place. And the first time we only had 3 of those folks come out and connect with the services, because the services are critical. Got it all clean, well, we got most of it cleaned up, and then we went out for a second event. This time we had everybody come out. And I gotta tell you, right now we're down to about 2 of those folks still at the RV place there. So we were able to deconstruct about 3 of them, and it's made an impact. So the other point about are you enabling them? Guys, I'm a DA. I don't have a heart. I'm not here to make their life best. I'm here to try to get them off the street. And I got to tell you, when I first met my partners at Love One and with LEAD, and they said, well, you can't tell these people what to do. That's what I do. I say, you either do this or you're going to jail or prison. And what I've learned for the most challenged folks, if you don't develop that trust, they're not ready to do it. Because they can say, I can do 15, 20 days in jail, no problem, Bill. What's happened is we've actually taken people off the streets that I never thought we'd get off. Folks that I've prosecuted 15 times, and now they're off the streets. And all of a sudden, you know what? They're not committing at least as much crime as they were. And so it's the process forward, and that's where I've become a huge believer in this effort.
The other thing that I'll mention in terms of cleanup, as Joe and I have been in discussions with Liz from the Downtown Merchant Association, and there's, as a matter of fact, she just emailed some information because we're talking about how can we put it together work groups and assign them blocks, and they'll clean up the streets downtown. And there's a whole program that she just emailed us that she got at the League of Oregon Cities, I think, that we're looking at. So yes, big part. I think we want people to feel valued and engaged with us, and asking for someone to help you gives them value. And so that's a small way that can occur. Okay, next question was, will Clackamas Community College be involved with the education workforce component? And I'm throwing yes. So, I mean, I've seen a yes from Dr. Cook. And Dr. Cook has been on an advisory committee early on with us and still is, and that's helping us guide this project. So from behind the scenes a lot, but really valuable. And absolutely, we want to make a great connection with the community college.
Dan, can I comment on that?
Yes, there you are.
So
yes.
right now, Love One has an intern. We recently housed her. She is a single mom, never had her own place. She's now stable, housed, and enrolled at CCC. She's getting a human services certificate, and she is interning with us this term, and she is knocking it out of the park.
Okay. How will the mental health crisis be addressed? How will mental health crises be addressed when the center is closed on weekends and nights?
The opioid problem we have today and the mental health crisis we have today cannot be solved by us. It's a collaborative event. We need help, we need professionals, and we need those services. I know that we have panelists that have ideas. I believe that we can have those services in-house if we plan for it and work towards professionals to be involved. As far as security, we've talked about a lot of things. I'm dealing with that issue today in my own building, and we're looking at alternative ideas, maybe security systems better or even personnel on site. There's a lot of thoughts, but there's also costs involved. So I'm dealing with some of these things that they don't make sense to me today because I don't have the funding to do it. But we have plans and desires to make those changes, even in our building as we are today.
Yeah.
And I'll just add a little bit to that. So, I think the initial reaction here is related to the fact that we have a lot of system shortcomings, particularly related to the opioid addiction crisis, unmet behavioral health needs. And a lot of those things are falling on the shoulders of the homeless services system to carry. And that solving those problems is not why our homeless services community-based organizations exist, right? They exist to try to get people stabilized and back into housing. And so there's an unfortunate sort of dynamic right now where that problem is falling on their shoulders, and they're not necessarily equipped or weren't historically equipped to deal with that level of need. So I have a unique vantage point in health, housing, and human services where I see both the homeless services system, but I also see our behavioral health system and our substance use addiction system. And so my job from that vantage point is to lean on those other systems to build capacity to address those needs so that it's not cascading down on the homeless services system, while at the same time, in the short term, trying to provide the resources and supports that our homeless services providers need in the moment to adequately deal with that situation. So that's sort of this was a very specific question about what are you gonna do at 10 p.m. when there's that person on the streets? And I'm giving you the macro explanation, which is it's bigger than that, right? There are systemic issues that we need to address so that that crisis at 10 p.m. isn't presenting itself.
Let me give you the micro view. What it means is that OCPD is going to get called, and they're going to respond to it, and they're going to do the best they can with it. And so longer term, though, we solve this one person at a time right now. We identify these folks. We try to bring the resources together. We make sure that the criminal justice system dovetails with what they're trying to accomplish with their treatment folks. So I'm the push part. These guys are the pull part, and we got to keep working at it. What the opportunity here is the navigation center will give us a chance to get better at that. We'll get more coherent. I think we'll have better outcomes.
And I'll add one other little comment to that. I'm going to tell you how things really work, really happen, is we heard that issue a lot at the neighborhood meeting, and I'm glad we did. You know, when we talk about the navigation center, folks, it's a year worth of designing and raising money and another year, maybe year and a half of building. So all the great things we're talking about are 2 to 2.5 years away. Okay, so that got to start somewhere, got to get it done. Okay, but if you live right across the street from the Father's Heart, that sounds like an eternity, right? That's a long time because there's already putting up with issues. So since that meeting, whenever that was, what is today? Tuesday, so last Wednesday, or Tuesday, whatever, I got on the phone, called Chief Band, called Adam, and said, you guys, let's meet. Sean Davis, the new chief's going to be there. Adam's going to be there. Richard's going to be there. I'm going to be there. We're pulling in. We've already got a team coming together this Thursday. We're having lunch, and we're talking about that issue. We're talking about how we can make it better right now. Not 2 years from now, right now for that neighborhood. That came out of that meeting. That's how partnerships work. That's how listening works. That's how action happens. It's not rocket science. It's not, and I'm not trying to overpromise. I'm not saying it's going to get better tomorrow, but I'm telling you, there's going to be relationships established at that meeting that weren't there before, and we're going to figure out. Because I know Jim has been down to San Diego. He's seen examples of having a triage team that's 24/7. It takes money, but what could we do as a city or a county that allows this rapid response to some of these really crisis breakdowns, these crisis issues in our behavioral mental health. I mean, let's talk about that. Let's figure out a solution now, not 2 years from now. So that came out of a meeting like last week. So that's boots on the ground. Like, that's what we're doing. Okay. I'm trying to get through all these, I promise. Are all of the staff volunteer? Are all staff volunteer, or are there paid position for HSCC and partners? I can speak for HSCC. We have one paid position, Mr. Joe. The rest of us are all volunteer. From Shelley, thank you, Wes, for donating her time, and leadership for allowing that to happen. But we're all volunteers. Everybody's volunteer. And I know the nonprofits, you can speak to that.
Well, we outgrew our volunteer base in the sense of qualified staff. We operated as a ministry for probably 15, 16 years with just volunteers. Maybe one person was on paid staff. I had to hire qualified individuals. Today, because of contracts that we've been able to secure, I personally have 23 employees, but they're professional employees. We've been really good at hiring the right people, and we're still looking for more. So this homeless problem, if you will, has gone past a volunteer coming in and handing out a pair of socks. We need professionals, and it's really important that we have the right people on staff.
Love One has 7 paid staff and probably 3 million volunteers.
Thank goodness. Yeah, okay. The question here is about security, which is a good one. And is the property zoned for the proposed use? Yes, it is. It's an allowed use for that, for this type of a center. And then how do we propose to protect the surrounding properties? Well, I've mentioned some of the things. One, we'll have work teams, but we'll also have a safety and security committee. We'll look at all of the aspects of that. That gets down to how often do you walk around your building? How often do you check it at night? You know, all of those type of things. And don't forget, and this is not to be self-serving, I know Lance, is I'm here too. I'm not going to put this in my backyard and not have it be successful and not have it be cared for. I get the fears of that and the concerns of that. I really do. I mean, that's how it started with people in the gazebo. But we have to do something. My hope is that we're going to lessen that, and we'll have the right staff and the right design to the building to lessen any impact on the neighbors. But bottom line is we've got to work together to make sure that doesn't happen. So,
Hey, Dan, can I respond to that?
yes.
This is where I get to say, we're not going to let this look like Portland. We are going to, here in Clackamas County, we arrest people if they commit crime, and we prosecute them if they commit crime. We will continue to do that, and that's part of how we address those issues related to security at this specific location.
Let's see. Yeah, and I'm really thankful to that, and that's not a small deal. There is a big difference. People say, are they just going to come out here? They might come out here, but when they find out we're different, they're not going to probably stay. And that's that. Hey, I got a head and a heart. I'm very compassionate. I'll work for people, but follow the laws, stay in the boundaries. Yeah. Anyway. I'd like to know if you can tell us what the setup and agencies are going to be in the facility. Will there be sleeping options and laundry? Do you want to speak to sleeping options and laundry?
Well, we're not a shelter. We never plan to be a shelter. The only time we would shelter people is through emergency weather events, whether it's smoke, heating, cooling. We're doing that today. But we have no intention, at least right now, we have no intention to be a 24-hour shelter. As far as laundry, Brandy has her laundry. We will be doing laundry simply for our clothing exchange program. Whether we can expand that is yet to be determined based on housing, or based on the building. But we're just moving from one place to another. At least that's the way it appears for me, but it's going to be so much better. It's just more efficient.
Okay, sorry. Well, that we just did. Okay, how much will the center cost, acquisition, develop, ongoing operations, and who will fund it? The center, we estimate the total cost, purchase and rehab of the center to be somewhere between $17 and $20 million. It's not a small change. The funding for that will come from a variety of sources. It'll come from some government grants. It'll come from some of the SHS funding that Metro is providing, we hope. It'll come from some nonprofit or some raising of funds through businesses and individuals. Joe, our executive manager, one of the reasons why we hired him, he's been skilled at fund development. So he's got a dual role of managing us and also raising funds. So it'll be a myriad of sources. Ongoing operations. Here's the goal of the building: to buy it, rehab it, have it paid for. Zero debt, no mortgage. So what are the operational costs? You got utilities. It's a nonprofit, so we don't pay any taxes. Sorry, Clackamas County, city. So it's a nonprofit. But so your operational costs are relatively low. Okay. Now, there's got to be sinking funds for things like if heating systems go out, carpet gets replaced, all those things. I get that. Okay. So, but operationally, it'll be fairly low. The idea is to allow the nonprofits to be in there. Let's say market rate's $1.50 square foot. Maybe they'll be in there at 50 cents, maybe 40 cents, a low number. Why? Well, that's all we might need, but it also allows them to put more of their funding into what they do, not paying for a mortgage. Okay. The other thing is we're talking about workforce training. We're talking about having a coffee shop. We're talking about income centers. How can we generate money from that to help pay for the building? So that's what we're noodling around. I hope that helps answer that question. Okay, where are the homeless coming from? And has there been a snapshot in time survey to understand the cause? Adam or?
So our service providers, I'll let them speak to kind of anecdotally what they see every day in the provision of services. But in general, we don't see homeless folks coming to our community from elsewhere. That largely our point-in-time counts and our coordinated housing access system, it says that we have a lot of people suffering housing insecurity right here in our own community. So there's a magnet myth out there, and in this sphere, right, it's referred to as the magnet myth because it simply isn't founded. Now, that's not to say that people don't get on buses or mass transit and wind up here, but earlier Brandy was talking about what they do when they encounter folks, right? They do an assessment. Where are that person's resources? What are the family connections that they have? For the most part, people want to be connected back to where that foundation is. And so that's what we do in the delivery of services. So, there is that myth out there, and there is a certain portion of folks that we encounter that are from elsewhere, and we do our best to make connections that they need to get them back to where they want to be.
Agreed. And for many of the folks that we see, overwhelmingly, the majority of the folks that we work with, which is anywhere from, we've got 300 plus people every Thursday at the food pantry. Our laundry events, we have 5 a month, and we're serving upwards of 100 people at those. Not to mention the folks that we're working with on a daily basis with outreach and housing and other services. The majority of those folks have grown up within a mile of where they're accessing services. So they are Clackamas County residents. That's just the reality, whether we like it or not, and we want to think it's someone else's problem. These are our neighbors. And what we have seen since the eviction moratorium lifted is more families, just appalling number of families with kids living in their vehicles, trying to keep their vehicle running, trying to keep their jobs while they figure out where they're going to shower and how they get their kids to school and what their next step is. And then Marty and I see this all day long. We get a call and their car broke down. They just need it repaired. That doesn't solve the problem. That's one piece, and then it spirals. And so how quickly can we get them into the hotel motel program? How quickly can we get that turned around? The brief, rare, and non-recurring mission is great, and that's absolutely what we're striving for. And that doesn't represent the complexities that we deal with on a regular basis, but the faster we can get people from unhoused to housed, the better.
I'm going to say something that I've got to be careful how I say it, but I think it's important that you realize there's a visual expectation you have of a homeless person when you look at them on the streets. And we struggle with some of those individuals ourselves. There are hundreds of individuals you don't see that need help, and we help them every day. And I know I'm making a comment, then I can substantiate it. I don't have statistics right in front of me, but they've done studies how many people are homeless and you don't even know it. So the vision is the guy on the street corner causing a problem, or he's having a mental break. But the reality is there's dozens and dozens and dozens behind them that we're helping every day.
Yeah, statistics show that the largest segment of the population that's homeless are single moms with children. And they're in their car until they go to the hotel for a night to take a shower. And they're back in their car. I mean, that's the biggest segment. Second biggest segment is students. 10% of students are couch surfing. Their parents have moved or divorced or they want to finish high school. They're going from buddy to buddy. That's number two. Number three is what I say the visible, the ones you see. So, when we label homeless, it's a big tent, folks. It's a big tent. And I think, I'll just say that. Okay, where do these individuals go at night? Back to the tents and neighborhoods and parks, like where do they go? And that's a quandary, right? Because here's the problem, or here's the issue. We're talking a lot about what we're doing and then why we're doing it with the Navigation Center and be more effective, all that. And yet that doesn't provide that shelter. We have zero shelter, overnight shelter. Zero. We have a hotel program, it's working. We have housing, permanent housing, we've got that going. In terms of an emergency shelter or shelter services, nada. So all the good work you can do and get them back into this navigation of recovery, at night, they're right back there. So you think it's hard to put a navigation center together? Put a shelter together. Right? Who wants that? And yet, isn't that what we need if we aren't going to have them on the sidewalk in front of our house? Just think about it. I mean, so that push and pull, Bill says, push us. The public has to come around and say, we want a shelter. That would help, wouldn't it, elected officials, right? I mean, seriously. So anyway, I'm probably editorializing too much. Do you want to answer that any other way?
For the most part, it's exactly what you think. They're going to go back to their camps, their tents, their safe spaces where they're out of sight, out of mind, right? The other piece is we have individuals who are not safe to live in those situations, and often they will ride buses all night. They'll stay awake, they'll ride buses to the end of the line and back. We have a woman that we've worked with for years, and that's what she did for 5 years. She's now housed, and that was a long haul. And to Dan's point, we don't have any shelters. So what we do is we scramble to pull together resources. Do they want sober housing? Are they ready for that? Do they want into treatment? Because even as difficult as it is to get a spot in treatment or a sober living house, that is our quickest open door for someone if they're interested. The other thing is the hotel motel program. How quickly can we get folks rehoused so those rooms open up so we can get more people in so we can turn that around again? So we are scrambling as fast as we can to make that number go down.
Yep. This is a good question. What are we doing to reverse Measure 110? Open-air drug use is rampant. Many of your clients are using drugs, creating further mental illness within themselves, creating unsafe neighborhoods and downtown. What are you doing to serve these people is great. What you are doing to serve is great. But when they are on drugs, they are not themselves. Many times they are not safe. So I don't know, Bill, if you want to speak to 110 or not, and then what are we doing to help the drug situation? Because it's, yeah.
From this DA's perspective, this one DA's perspective, Measure 110 was a disaster. But we still, I mean, through the partnerships we have here, we still move forward as we did even before 110. We don't have lead anymore from a standpoint of a diversion of that drug charge. But we still have the same problems. I mean, there's other criminality that comes out of that. And so we'll still just work like we are right now, and it would be better with the transition, or excuse me, the navigation center. The other piece I will say is that there was a question earlier about, well, how did these folks become homeless? What led to homelessness? Guys, I frankly don't care. I mean, what happens when somebody's been chronically homeless for a year or more, you can no longer pull that apart. There's someone who's done such trauma, such trauma has been done to their system that my job is to try to figure out how can we get them off the street and then start addressing that. So what we've seen is that, I talked about that sea change since 2019. When we started having the motel program, we could get them in one place, and then we could focus the treatment, the services on them, and let these guys do that hard work. But when they're out running around the bushes, getting pushed around by cops and people like me, it's really hard to pull all that together.
Okay, I got one more question for each of you, and because we got to wrap it up. And take maybe 30 seconds, which I know will turn into 45. And they wanted a 1 to 5 year time frame, but I can't even go that big. Sorry, whoever asked this question. I'm just going to say, what does success look like? What does success look like? Good question.
Success for me is to collaborate with visionary partners like all of us here. We've seen success when we come together as one to find solutions to the problems we face. It's not on one agency, it's not on one individual. And frankly, each individual problem we face is individualized by the people we serve. This is a complex problem of which we can all solve together, but it isn't for me to solve, and it isn't for Brandy to solve, it's for us to solve.
Success to me looks like all of us working together to do this work, and I'm not asking any of you to go climb out in the woods and chase chickens. I've done that. I'm happy to do that, but listen with open ears and open hearts, because we're actively trying to address the issue and doing our best. And oftentimes it feels like we're being charged with being the cause of it, and that's not accurate. So success for me is people listening.
Yeah, I think success for me is reinforcing or restoring the community's faith in our ability to work together to constructively solve problems like this really, really complex one. We get up every day going to work trying to solve this problem, and we're making a lot of progress there with the Metro Affordable Housing Bond. Clackamas County set a goal of developing 1,500 affordable housing units. We're going to beat that goal by 2025. Now with the Metro Supportive Housing Services measure, we've set out goals in our local implementation plan, which first was to build the system capacity that we need, both at Clackamas County and through our community-based organizations, to be able to deliver more services. There's a lag in that progress, but we're coming a long way on that. And within the next year, couple years, we're going to start seeing serious impacts from all of the hard work we've been doing to build this system.
Before 2019, I would have said success is reducing chronic homelessness by 10 to 15% in Clackamas County. Now, I would say if we don't beat 50%, I'll be shocked. I mean, so much more is happening now than it did 4 years ago.
Okay, thank you all. I'm gonna read the last question, which is really to the audience. How can the general population assist in your efforts? Well, one, we are a 501c3. We do take donations, but in all seriousness, if you have a desire, you have 2 organizations here, and if they can't use your volunteerism, I know they can connect you to people who can, but we need, as they all said, your support, your help. It's a huge issue, but the solutions are individual. They're individual. And then the last question here, just to read it, so I went through all the questions. Do you have support from Veteran Services? Yes, there's a lot going on with Veteran Services right now in the county, but so we'll probably would steer them into that system because it's already working pretty well. But that's a good one. So I just want to, before Kent comes back, I want to really a shout out. These guys work their what's off. Thank you. And I just want to thank the Miles family for your support and for being here and for what you've done. And let's do something really good with that building and honoring your father. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, I think we also need to acknowledge and recognize the talents, the vision, the skills, the bridge building that Mr. Dan Fowler has put together here as well. You know, we've heard the saying, well, he can talk the talk, but can he really walk the walk? And I think what you've heard today from each one of these amazing individuals, from Dan and from others, they are walking the walk right now. This is a big challenge, huge challenge. It's not going to fix itself on its own. But each and every one of you here today can make a difference. That's why you're here today, because you care. This was something that was important to you. And we appreciate all of your contributions. You may not start today, it may not start tomorrow, but I think hearing the messages and the accomplishments and the successes that each and every one of these organizations is bringing to the table is resonating in your heart right now, saying, okay, how can I step up? When that opportunity presents itself, what can I do? So I applaud each and every one of you for coming today and hearing this update. I look forward to touring the Navigation Center once it's up and operating, or just hearing more on the progress in the months ahead. But we are truly gifted to have such a unique facility, and let's use it for a model throughout the entire Portland metro region, where other similar partnerships can be put together for the benefit of the communities. And it really will make a big difference. I know it will.